Screen Slurps.
Hello and welcome to Screen Slurps, the movie review podcast where we discuss everything that is good, that is bad, and that is savage in the world of cinema. I'm Adam Meisner, and if you haven't heard our last episode, it was announced that Dash Gearhart will no longer be co-hosting the show Screen Slurps, but do not fret. I, Adam Meisner, am still here with you, and I am carrying on the torch that is Screen Slurps. And with me this week, we do have a special guest, my girlfriend, Laura Herlocker, joining me here in real life.
In person, face to face.
I'm so happy that this is the way it is, that it's me and Laura. And we're here talking about the brand new Steven Soderbergh film, No Sudden Move, this week. After me and her actually just watched the other Steven Soderbergh film from, what was it, 20 years ago? Almost 20 years ago.
I think so, yeah.
2004, I think, was when Traffic came out. We watched that with your dad.
Yeah. Which my dad actually digged it. So I think that's a good sign. He's a little picky.
I mean, Steven Soderbergh's got a great reputation to uphold, and he's put up enough Ocean's films now. Ocean's, right. He's got 14 of them now. No, I mean, there's about 4 or something. So,
well, even the year that Traffic came out, he came out with Aaron Brockovich, right? So
two in a year.
In 1 year, they were both nominated for Academy Awards. So
that's incredible. It's
the man
amazing.
knows what he's doing.
And we got a lot to talk about with this film, No Sudden Move. So we'll certainly be sure to cover a lot of that. But before we dive too far into No Sudden Move, we want to talk about the random things that we've been doing this past week. It's a tradition of Screen Slurps that we've got to uphold here. So, Laura, I got to know, what have you been doing this past week? Has there been anything that hasn't included me?
Being that we've been stuck together for the past year and a half, most of what we do is together. But I do have my own side slurps. So,
ooh.
Yes, get ready. So, first, we'll talk about, I am a huge reader, avid reader, and I read at least 5 books a month, probably. It's a bit ridiculous. So, I actually just finished People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. It's a really great, fun little beach read, a little rom-com about these best friends that become lovers. That's all I'll say. If you want a good little summer weekend read, go read People We Meet on Vacation.
Okay.
Other than that, so out of my book world, TV shows, the one show I do watch without you is Lucifer, which is now on Netflix. It used to not be, but it was canceled by Fox, I think, and picked up by Netflix. The second part of the last season just came out, so finally caught up on that. I'm a big Lucifer fan, right? Based off of, I believe, a graphic novel series by Neil Gaiman. And it's about Lucifer coming to Earth, and he runs a nightclub and becomes a consultant to a police detective.
Ooh.
In LA. So it's just them kind of solving crimes, but then you have that fantasy aspect because obviously he's Lucifer. And God's involved, and it's the Allstate man.
Yeah. So one thing that always stands out to me is I know he can help me with my car insurance, so he must be able to help me with religion as well.
God. But yeah, it was good. This last season, I will say the earlier seasons are better. The show definitely is nearing its end. So I think there's one more season, then it's over, which it's time. It's time. The only other thing I had was something we actually did together. Now that things are finally opening up and the world's getting back to some sort of normal, right? We finally had our first concert, which Adam and I, the world doesn't know, are big into music. So we haven't been able to go to a concert since February of 2020, I think. And finally this weekend, we're able to go and see Jeff Tweedy and Cheap Trick live, which was great and felt so nice and normal. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything else to say about the shows, but
I mean, I thought it was fantastic, and it certainly felt like I was back home again since I grew up in Rockford, and so it was just an overwhelming I don't want to say weight, but it just felt like being wrapped back up in life of home again. I mean, it's just Cheap Trick is just it's what feeling like being at home is like again, and feeling like I was young again. So
yeah, it was just so strange to be doing something that used to be like an everyday occurrence, right? But we've been deprived of it for a year. So just being around people and like getting able to sing and scream and enjoy live music, it was nice. I'm looking forward to the summer and more concerts that we get to go to.
it'll be very good.
Yeah.
It'll be very nice.
That'll be nice. But that's all I got for my side slurps. What about you, Adam?
Well, you know me far too well, so I'm sure you can already guess everything I've done. And the first thing that I've done, absolutely with you by my side, it involves the television, and it involves watching people get tattoos on their body, and it's called Ink Master. I told Dash about it just a week ago, and more episodes under my belt. I finished season 3 with you. We watched all of season 3 of Ink Master, so now it's on to season 4, and it just doesn't get old. I enjoy watching Ink Master, and I don't have many tattoos on my body. In fact, I only have one, but the joy of watching someone get tattooed, just because I like art,
Well, that's the thing.
I'm a man that likes art. I appreciate the craft of artwork, and yes, someone getting a tattoo on their body is a form of art, and I think it's very impressive when it's done well, and even seeing someone not do it well on television, it's very entertaining, I think, and I think it's cool.
Yeah.
I think it's very cool.
No, I agree. Right? Like how you say it doesn't get old. It's because every episode you get to see a new take on a design. Like even if they give the same design to every contestant, right? Like everyone has to do a scorpion. You get to see how each of the artists design their own scorpion and what it looks like. So it's never the same. Never gets old. And then there's drama involved, which we always love.
Exactly. It's their take on what the design would be. And especially on season 4, we just watched an episode where one of the contestants, she could not handle criticism at all. She could not take being called out for, her style, and she chose herself to leave the competition because she just couldn't take it. She could not take the criticism, and the judges had to make it very blunt to everyone that the criticism is not them calling you out in a way that is them saying, you suck, you can't be here.
Right.
It's their way of saying they want you to be better. They're giving you that criticism to improve and to enhance your abilities. So
Right.
if it's something that you didn't do well on one design, it's not them saying that you suck. It's just like, this is not working on this design. So next time you do a design, look out for that and try to improve better the next time you do it. Don't take it as a slap in the face. Take it as a way to get better. And I appreciate that, because I certainly have thought similarly as a musician, as a continuing musician now, and many other things that I do. There's been plenty of times where I've tried to learn how to play a song or try to write music or things like that, and I try to play certain chord progressions or something like that over and over and over again, and maybe I can't do it the first time, and I think to myself, gosh, I must really suck at doing this. It's not that you suck, it's just you got to keep doing it. You got to keep trying over and over again, or you will never get it. You just got to keep practicing.
I mean, I like to say, a lot of people say like practice makes perfect, but I think it's more so like practice makes progress.
Yeah.
Right?
Persistence makes perfect.
Yeah. Like you just got to keep going at it.
Yeah.
You have to have criticism to be able to learn and, evolve. So.
Yeah. And other than Ink Master, I realized how badly I missed watching The Fairly Odd Parents, because, I'm a 12-year-old at heart, and I think the humor of that show is absolutely hysterical. Some of the jokes may have flown over my head when I was younger, but it's those kinds of cartoons that I think are absolutely hysterical as an adult. I will probably always think that show's hysterical.
I do feel like Fairly Odd Parents has a lot of adult humor that I did not catch as a kid. Yeah. Watching it now, I'm like, especially with the parents.
Yes.
Like, it's just something, now I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, I get it.
The godparent jokes, too, are just so funny, even if they're not completely adult jokes. But the jokes that they made in the second episode where they're pretending to be television shows for Vicky, I just think are so funny, where it's just like, and now back to the weather with Cosmo, and he's standing there holding a feather, and it's just, I thought you said feather. Like, it's just
Cosmo
so
is just
stupid.
so, I don't even have words to explain Cosmo as a character. Like, I feel like actually our relationship, we're a little bit like Cosmo and Wanda, honestly. Like, you're the funny jokester, you know, whatever, and I'm a little more serious, a little more, I don't even know. But I feel like we fit like our dynamic is a little similar.
That's good. I take that as a compliment.
No, I mean that as a good thing. Obviously.
And other than that, I played a little bit more Cozy Grove. Cozy Grove is really
Cozy
more of your
Grove.
alley, but I still play it too because it's a very addicting game.
It's just so relaxing.
It is a very relaxing video game.
I like it
Listeners,
more than Animal Crossing.
if
Like,
you haven't played Cozy Grove yet, check it out. It's a very chill game to play. Sometimes it does get irritating when you run out of space in your backpack, but
the
other than that-
backpack is the worst part of that game. Like, you are constantly running out of slots, but hopefully we'll get upgrades soon and we won't have that issue.
yeah, other than the backpack,
The
Cozy Grove.
visuals, the music, everything. It's great. It's beautiful. Great little indie film. Or
But-
indie game.
It's all the same.
Same thing. It's like a film, right? You watch it.
So other than that, that's pretty much what I've been up to, and that brings us to our main topic of the day, which is No Sudden Move, the film by Steven Soderbergh, and it's a brand new film. Just came out in this past month on June 24th of 2021.
Yeah.
And there are some impressive things I want to say about this movie as we start to unravel things. And some of which I will say the film was directed and shot by Steven Soderbergh.
And edited.
By Steven Soderbergh.
He does it all. Like,
He is a magician, okay? If you
I mean,
didn't know
that's
that.
one thing you can say about him, right? Like, he does the job. He does it all.
If you're going to hire somebody, you got to put Steven Soderbergh's number in your phone.
Can you imagine, though, this, like, he's got to be a machine to be able to direct and also operate the camera. So you're doing both of those things at once. Though maybe it helps, right? Because then as the camera operator and the director, you know what you're looking for.
Right.
You don't have to, like, communicate that to someone else.
You know, I just got done teaching kids at a film camp that as a director, you typically are not also the one manning the camera. But this is the exception right
Well,
here.
it doesn't often happen, right?
It does not often happen, but that doesn't mean it cannot happen.
Right.
So this is an example where it is happening. And it's also an example where he clearly had a vision for this film and he had the technical skills for this film where he knows how to run the camera and he knows how to direct the film. And he's filling both slots.
Did you know, though, that in the credits, he calls himself Peter Andrews under the camera operator?
I saw that in the
He uses
beginning.
like a pseudonym.
That's
Yeah.
where I was confused looking online and seeing that the film was shot by Steven Soderbergh. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second. I was reading the credits in the beginning and it said that it was filmed by somebody else.
Yeah. I wonder why, like, if there's a reasoning why he does that. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me trying to think into something, like why he would use a pseudonym and not say it's himself. Maybe to separate the two a little more, but
Maybe he is trying to make it seem like he's not this like hot narcissist
Yeah.
in the credits where it's just like, I'm the
I
king
do
of all worlds. I
everything.
do it all. Like I am the director and I'm the cameraman and I'm the editor.
Yeah.
It's Steven Soderbergh.
yeah, that would be a little intense. The opening credits were just like, bam, 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 bam.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because there are some people in the industry that have done that. I don't know. I guess there's nothing wrong with that if you wanted to do that, but I can see how he might want it to look a little more like I've got this job and that's it, and let's make it look a little cleaner.
The one interview that I was listening to about this movie was saying that he also does the lighting too.
Jeez.
Like he also, I don't know
You
if
know
he,
what?
I don't know if that means he's the only one, like, but or he
He's
just
like, I don't
assists.
need a camera crew at all. I'm
just me.
It's a one-man gig.
I think it's just he has a vision, right? And he knows
Right.
what that vision for the movie is. He knows how he wants it to look. So it's just easier for him to do the camera and the lights.
A PA comes out and is like, Mr. Soderbergh, I brought you your coffee. And he's like, get away, I'm doing it all.
He's got like 8 arms.
He's Dr. Octopus.
Yeah. Made a little robotic backpack.
He's like, Peter Parker, get out of here.
You sounded a little like J.K. Simmons. What's his character's name?
Oh, yeah, like Whiplash or something like that?
No, well, I meant, who is his character in Spider-Man?
Oh, he's the news guy.
Yeah, just the way he talks.
Parker! Oh, man.
Anywho, moving on from Steven Spielberg. The writer, though, Ed Solomon, he has written a few films which you have reviewed on this podcast.
That's
before.
True. Bill and Ted.
Yeah, and also one of your favorite soundtracks, Super Mario Brothers.
Yes.
So
that's true.
Men in Black, I think, is also something he wrote, which is strange to think he wrote. So think of Bill and Ted, Men in Black. They're these like comedy, kind of dumb in a good way movies. And then you have this, No Sudden Movie. It's like a complete 180 from the other stuff that he's written.
That's very true. It's a very diverse genre that this guy's covering. He's got the comedy in Bill and Ted. He's got the action sci-fi with Men in Black. He's got Super Mario.
Yeah, that's so random. But hey.
Hey,
they're good movies, right? I mean,
yeah, he's really spreading it out there. And let's not forget the ensemble cast, which I've got to define it as that. And even if you look online, they're going to call it an ensemble cast.
Oh, yeah.
But it is a ensemble cast that you have here. I want to call it a perfect cast, basically. I mean, it's a lot of actors that Steven Soderbergh has cast in prior films, but he doesn't go wrong with the casting he's got here on this film. He's got Don Cheadle, he's got Benicio del Toro, he's got Brendan Fraser, he's got Julia Fox, Noah Jupe, I believe, Kieran Culkin, John Hamm, Ray Liotta, David Harbour. The list goes on.
A surprise appearance by Matt Damon.
Yeah, Matt Damon just shows up.
Was not expecting that.
I wanted to just fall into my couch, into a black hole of greatness watching this film, because seeing all of these actors in the same ensemble, I was just thinking, wow, it could not be any greater than this. I'm sure that's an arguable statement. I'm sure someone can call me out on that, but it's a great cast.
I agree. I mean, the return of Brendan Fraser. That's that's all I needed, honestly. Like I know you're not a big fan. I love The Mummy.
Hey, you don't have to say that.
No, I'm just saying. But I love The Mummy so much, and it's just great seeing him back. I feel like he hasn't done anything recently, like at all, and so it's nice to see him, in a new role. Getting back into the swing of things.
There'll be a time when he comes back for Darren Aronofsky's film The Whale, but until then, it's really nice to see him in this movie.
And Ray Liotta. I love Ray Liotta. Even just remember those like smoking commercials he did, or like for the patch to stop smoking. There's just something about his voice and his image I love. I can watch those commercials all day long.
It's impressive. It's very impressive to see all of this coming together in this movie. And just to keep going on here, the film was produced by Casey Silver. And to give a very quick synopsis of this film, I found this on Google, the help of our great friend of the internet, Google. A very quick synopsis of this film. In 1954 Detroit, small-time criminals are hired to steal a document. When their heist goes horribly wrong, their search for who hired them and for what purpose sends them wending through all echelons of the race-torn, rapidly changing city. Now, if that statement made no sense to you...
Some big words in there.
Yes, there are some big words in there. And even I probably would never say the word echelons outside of that statement. But it's a pretty good descriptor of,
I think so.
Of what goes on in this movie. And for 1954 America, 1954 Detroit, I think it's a pretty good descriptor.
I like to add a little subline, right? And I'll say, AKA... don't trust anyone. Everyone turns on everyone. Criminals, the big four, automobiles. Add those keywords in.
So let's dive a little bit deeper into that plot synopsis to get a little bit more descriptive. Let's jump back to the beginning of this movie. The first person that we get introduced to is Don Cheadle's character, Kurt Goins. And Kurt is, he needs some money.
Well, he just got out of jail or prison I'm
Yeah.
assuming. He'd been in there a few years, it made it seem like.
Yeah.
So he's finally free. He's trying to get out, right? He's trying to buy this property in Kansas City or St.
I believe so.
Kansas City.
He's going to Kansas City. Yeah.
Yeah. So he needs a job quick, make some money, and get out. Because one of the big honchos, right, the big hoo-ha gang leader wants him dead.
Right.
So he's trying to get money and get out.
So he's trying to just, lay low and be out of the crime scene now that he's finally out of jail. And, let's quit it now and get out and just let it all go. And, of course, he gets hired into another crime job. Isn't that what we all love to do? You do one crime job, you get in jail. As soon as you get out, then let's do it again.
But this one was supposed to be like an easy, quick one, right? You babysit a family for 3 hours, in and out, you're done.
I just can't. I can't even imagine the thought process of that. It's just kind of like you're in the crime scene in the 50s. You probably shoot somebody. You go to jail and you're like, God dang it. Like, I can't believe this is what happens. But I guess that's what happens when you're tied up. And then you get out and then it's just like, all right, you're back in.
Can't leave.
The syndicate, man, that would just suck. But okay, so he gets hired into a babysitting job
By Brendan Fraser.
I just imagine I imagine babysitting. This is babysitting now, and you can't turn on Rugrats or something like that. No, you're babysitting with a gun. Anyways, so he gets hired by Brendan Fraser to do a babysitting job. And he gets in Brendan Fraser's car with him, and they're going to go pick up some more people for a babysitting job. And they go to pick up Benicio del Toro's character,
Ronald
McDonald.
Such a strange name for what Benicio del Toro looks like.
It wasn't actually Ronald McDonald. I'm just getting excited. But Ronald. So, and Ronald doesn't want to sit in the back seat with him.
Well, because, as we should talk about, 1950s Detroit, before the civil rights movement, things are still very much segregated. So you still have a lot of that racial prejudice going on. And obviously Don Cheadle is a black man.
Yeah.
So I think the movie tries to play into like the disparity and the discrimination that was happening at the time. And that's one of those moments where they kind of brought it up, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Where he doesn't want to sit in the back seat or sit next to even Don Cheadle's character because he's a black man. And Brendan Fraser is pretty much like, get over it or get gone.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, they did not play it soft at all. He's like, you're going to sit in the front seat. And Don Cheadle's telling him, no, I'm not. You're going to sit next to me or just leave. So Ronald gets over it. He ends up sitting next to him in the back seat.
He wants the money.
Yeah. So. they all want to get paid. So he sits in the back, and they end up going and picking up Charlie. And Charlie is he's a pretty stiff man, and he's got a very stern personality of just kind of like, it's my way of doing the job this way, and that's how it's gonna go, and we're all gonna get money, and that's the way that is. And they end up doing this babysitting job. They end up going over to what is David Harbour's place,
Doug.
So they're going over there, and they are going to get this envelope, and they're going to get their money, or Doug's family is going to pay the price if they don't get that envelope.
Right. And the whole time we don't even know what's in this envelope, right? Until later on. So we just know, Don Cheadle, Kurt and Ron are supposed to watch the family, the wife and the 2 kids at the house, while Charlie goes with Doug to get some document out of his boss's safe. We don't know what it is, and bring that back to Brendan Fraser. And of course, everything starts off good, right? Like, right. I mean, obviously the family's upset. There's men with, can we talk a minute about the masks they were wearing?
Oh, we can talk about it. I thought those masks, they look like Zorro.
They look like giant pads, like, excuse me. Just smacked on their eyes.
Giant pads that wanted to be Zorro masks.
And the way it stuck out behind their ears, it kind of it looked like a little bit like a monkey. The masks are so ridiculous. I could not take them in those masks.
They were trying to be Zorro masks, but they couldn't afford to paint them black or actually get Zorro masks.
Why didn't it tie behind their head? Instead, it just looped
it just
around
cut
their
off
ears.
At the ears. Yeah.
But moving on.
Yeah, that's where it left off. And Yeah, and we got a lot of very personal POV stories throughout this movie, and that's really what the defining factor I think of the film was, is that this wasn't just focusing on one protagonist. It wasn't just follow the one character throughout the film and see what the one character's story is. It really was cutting through every character and seeing what every character's story was and cutting back to each supporting character. So it wasn't like a one protagonist story that you follow and seeing what their main dilemma was. It was very much more so go to one character and see what their issue is. Now go to the next character and see what their issue is. Now go to the next character and see how they're handling it, and try and follow what the real crisis is for each and every character. And that's really what helped make this movie stand out, because it's really a mental focus as you follow this. And it's very much a mental study. Is the best way I can describe that. And so as you watch this, you're really trying to focus in on what would you do if you're in that situation. You're trying to really focus in on what this puzzle is if you are that character that you're focusing on. And my best descriptor for that is, if you are, David Harbour, if you're Doug and you're getting robbed by these robbers, and how are you going to handle that? And then when you cut back to Don Cheadle or Benicio del Toro as the robber, then how are you handling that as Don Cheadle or Benicio del Toro when you have that gun in your hand? How are you handling that puzzling situation of taking care of that to get the money? It really puts you in the hot seat of thinking like, well, man, I don't know how I'm going to handle this, because maybe I don't want to shoot Doug because he didn't do anything to me yet. It really makes you feel like a real person of the 1950s. And then we get introduced to John Hamm's character, who is a cop. You don't know if he's corrupt or not as he's first introduced. And you start to think like, well, is he corrupt or is he a good cop?
Well, and so for me to butt in, I think that's exactly what Solomon and Soderbergh wanted when they were writing this film. And one of the things I was reading, Solomon was talking about writing this, and he pretty much said he wanted to write something where you didn't find out parts of the character or their lives until way later in the film, right? So you're saying, you have all of these pieces, all these people, somehow they fit together, but you don't really learn all of that until the movie gets farther and farther along. So that means you, as the audience or the viewer, have to start creating or thinking in your mind kind of where things are going or how they got to this point. So you're able to really take in the movie and kind of create your own view, or I don't know the word I want, of who these people are. But then later down the line, you actually learn, this is what's happening, or this is what's going on. Even just the plot itself. So we're talking about essentially the first half, right? And it just seems like some silly little easy steal some document thing. But we learn later on, as I'm skipping ahead, this actually has to deal with this really big thing going on at the time, right? Involving all the auto industry in Detroit and this catalytic converter and kind of their schemy, sleazy way. It has a much bigger picture, right? It's not just them stealing some document, as I skip ahead. But we can go back. So
yeah.
back.
Yeah. And I mean, as you continue to watch the movie, you begin to realize that all of these supporting characters, you think that one character might only connect with one other supporting character. But really, as you keep watching, you start to realize that one character might be thinking they're going to stab another character in the back. And then you find out that character who's, character one might be trying to stab character number two in the back by working with character number three. Yeah. And then you realize that character number two is also working with character number three. And then character number three is actually working with character number one to get character number two.
Essentially, everyone's for themselves.
Exactly.
So if they need to pretend to partner up with someone else and then turn on them eventually, right? So we're talking about Ron, Kurt, and Charlie, the three, babysitting, getting the document in the beginning. And then we learn actually Charlie is trying to turn against Ron and Kurt, and he plans to kill the whole family and them. But before he gets to that, Don Cheadle shoots him, you know, to save the family, essentially. He didn't want all of them to die, which good on him. You know, a criminal with like a moral, right? With morality.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then that's when we start to learn, right, that there are these other higher up crime bosses involved who want both Kurt and Ron dead. And yes, they want this document, which we learn has to do with this new catalytic converter, which is supposed to help reduce the pollution that cars create. And so that's what eventually the document is and what the auto people want, so they can keep it hush hush for some reason. So we learn that there's these higher up crime bosses who want them dead. So yeah, it's this heist of this little document, but really there's all these larger pieces at play. Ron and Kurt both need to die.
Right. I couldn't believe the part of the film. I mean, we're chucking spoilers all over this thing. If you haven't realized already and you haven't seen the film yet, go watch the movie. But we're telling you the whole story. If you haven't seen the film yet, please go watch it. But I could not believe the part of this movie that David Harbour, he's obviously being held at gunpoint through this whole thing as the whole Babysitters Club is happening, and they've got his family at gunpoint, and David Harbour was supposed to find the paperwork that was in an envelope, and he was having a hard time doing that. His character works at this job where the envelope is supposed to be in a safe, and it was not. I think
he works at one of like GM.
Yeah,
he works
like
at.
that.
I think it's GM that he works for, and his boss had the document, right?
Right. So the first time he goes to see if he can get the envelope, the secretary is telling him no.
Who he's having an affair with.
Who he's having an affair with against his wife and his family. She's trying to tell him, no, it's not here anymore. The boss took that envelope and you can't get it. So the next time that he tries to get the paperwork, he goes directly to his boss and says, I need that envelope and I need that paperwork. And his boss denies him the envelope and says, I just can't give you that. I can't give you the paperwork and I'm not going to. And his response to that is, no, I need that and you can't tell me no. And as the boss is telling him, I'm not going to give it to you and I'll call the cops.
This is one of the funnier scenes in the movie, I think. Honestly.
I started to laugh, but inside I'm thinking like, this is so depressing, but I just can't help but laugh a little bit. But David Harbour like rolled his sleeves up and he's crying and he's like, I love my job, but
well, he like explains what he's about to do, right? He's like, I'm gonna get physical with you, and then he's like, I'm going to punch you. This is a punch. He's like beating up his boss.
He's explaining that he's gonna kick his boss's ass and
but he
starts
loves his job, and that's
but
why
he loves his
it.
job. Now, I will say though, I thought it was really cool in the writing of the script that after he kicks his boss's ass, that his boss's wife comes upstairs and says she's going to call the cops after his boss has clearly been beaten. And his boss says, no, don't call the cops, because his boss must have realized that, like, well,
they know this document, like, we still don't know what it is at this point, really. But that kind of gives us a clue, right? Like, there's something with this document that is a big deal, which is why he doesn't want police involved.
Right.
He's trying to keep this thing secret.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And at this point, right, we've kind of turned now. So Kurt and Ron have the document. And now they're kind of calling the shots, right? They know that there's these higher ups that want this thing. So this is where the second half of the movie comes in, right? It's them now putting in this plan into motion to, figure out who wants this document, how much money they can get for it, and how they can keep themselves alive against these mafia bosses, essentially, that want them dead.
It is an insane turn of events. And
there's just so many turns in this movie, right? Which is ironic, right? The movie's called No Sudden Move, but it seems like the entire movie is a bunch of sudden moves.
Yeah.
Like twists and turns.
And somewhat, based on true events too.
Well, so we learn, right, as I said, this document has to deal with the catalytic converter, which is a thing that was created to reduce the emissions of pollution from automobiles. And that's true, right? There was actually like a lawsuit that was started against the Big Four. So, which is weird. I've always known it as Big Three. I'm from Detroit, around there. That's where I grew up. So, GM, Ford, Chrysler, Big Three. But I guess during this time, it was the Big Four, including Studebaker. I guess that's what the big four were. So actually, the big four were keeping this secret, and there was a lawsuit that eventually came out because they were like, why are you keeping something that'll clean the earth or whatever secret? Anywho, so we know there is like a real thing going. It's based on kind of a true event, but with fictionalized characters.
We just don't want to get in the middle of all of these mobsters.
Yeah. I mean, I will say maybe this is a good point to talk about Detroit. So I will say they actually filmed it in Detroit, which I think is great. There's a lot of movies that are set in Detroit, but I feel like they're not actually a good depiction of what Detroit is. I mean, one of the few maybe is 8 Mile, because Eminem's from there. So like it's a pretty good depiction, I feel like, of what Detroit is. But this movie, because it was filmed there and it looks like Detroit, like the houses, when they're driving through the neighborhoods, like I could tell, oh, this is a house in Grosse Pointe, which is like a suburb of Detroit. There were things I could point out as landmarks, right? And even some of the buildings, like the building that they used for the Gotham Hotel, which was a real place. It's no longer there. And on some of the other landmarks, like this movie did look like Detroit, which I thought was really nice. And being in the 50s, as we kind of already mentioned, this was still segregation. And the Black community within Detroit has been and still is a really big thing. So I think the one kind of critique I have of the movie is that I feel like they tried to bring in, racism and discrimination, and it was mentioned, like with Don Cheadle and Benicio in the beginning. You kind of get an inkling of it, but I felt like it could have been more, especially being set in Detroit with such a thriving Black community at the time. But I will say visually, it looked like Detroit. I felt like I was home. So I will give them props for that.
I'm trying to read this paragraph here in the middle of the Wikipedia.
More about Detroit?
No, it's no, we were calling David Harbour's character as Matt.
Oh, Doug is Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
My bad. I think I was thinking of Kyle MacLachlan in Twin Peaks and how he goes by Dougie, and I just assumed it was David Harbour's character. Oh well. Listeners, whenever we said Doug, pretend we said Matt. It happens. We're not perfect people, right? Moving on. So now, Matt beats up his boss. Ron and Kurt finally have the document, and they put this plan into motion to meet with kind of the heads of the auto industry, so including and also Matt Damon, to get money to give them this document so they can get the money and get out.
Yeah, I was looking at the spot where Doug gets killed when they all meet up.
The real Doug. Brendan Fraser Doug.
Gets shot, yes.
And, well, that's when they kind of turn on Ray Liotta's character also.
Yes.
So they tell them to meet at this restaurant, which is an actual restaurant in Detroit also. The interior shots they did at. And they show up, the two of them there. And yeah, Brendan Fraser gets shot. Ray Liotta, they beat up and put in the trunk of their car.
Yes.
But he escapes, gets out, goes home.
And then he gets killed by his wife.
Only to be shot by his wife, who is having an affair with Ron.
Yes, with Ronald.
Yeah. Can we talk about, quickly, the wives in this movie? I actually think I wish there was more of them. So Matt's wife, I thought she was a really great character. And I think I feel like there was one part where it kind of implied that she was lovers with her best friend, the other mom.
It seemed like it.
It felt like it. That little line about, like, we can take a holiday together. How would we explain that kind of thing? Like, I wish there was more of that. And then Frank's wife, who's having the affair with Ron, she was just badass. I mean, she shoots Frank point blank after he beats her up. So.
Yeah. Frank's wife, who was having an affair with Ron. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. And, well, I mean, Frank had beaten her up in one scene. I mean, he was like...
Well, after he found out about the affair.
Right. Yeah, there's just some interesting stuff in this movie. There's some very strange scenes. Now, okay, this reminds me of another thing that I wanted to point out. As we talk about the interesting parts, there's One thing that I do want to point out that I didn't think was very well, it's certainly interesting, but the fisheye looking lens of the cinematography, I gotta ask, Steven Soderbergh, why were you using that? And I don't think I'm the only one to wonder this, because a lot of comments online from a lot of people are asking the same thing. It's one of those things where you watch this movie and the storyline and the cast, it all flows as it should, I believe. But it's that fisheye lens that you're using for a lot of these shots that I think to myself, why is that the lens you're using here? Why can't we just have a clean looking shot? And there's still clean looking shots for parts of this movie. And then you cut to a take where it looks like it's a fisheye lens. And some of the takes that have that fisheye look to them, I think it works. But some of them will have some panning shot with a fisheye lens on it. And I'm thinking to myself, now, wait a second. Why is that necessary?
Definitely some scenes, it was a little awkward.
Yeah, and it's a little off-putting, for me at least. I'm thinking, okay, that doesn't need to be like that. We could just keep it, looking clean for this take.
I will say the first time I noticed it, right? Or I don't even know if it was a fisheye at this point in the movie, or just like the angle he was shooting it, right? In the very beginning, when we first kind of meet Ronald, there's this really nice shot that's from above at an angle of him in his kitchen with dirty dishes behind him. And when I first saw that, I was like, oh, this is a nice shot. This is cool. But then you kept seeing stuff like that.
Right.
And I was like, it's a little much.
Yeah, over and over and over again.
A little excessive.
There's some shots where it has this security cam looking effect to it. And for those kinds of shots, I'm thinking, okay, you know what? This is workable. We can have a static shot with this fisheye lens on it and give it that sort of authentic old school look to it. That's fine with me. I can go for that. But it's when we have the camera moving with the fisheye on it, and we do that very frequently.
Yeah.
Over and over again. That's when I start to think, okay, this doesn't look right.
Yeah, it, like we said, definitely got a little bit overused.
Yeah. Otherwise, I really liked the authenticity to the look of the film. I liked a lot of the acting in the movie. It all seemed like it was very well done.
Yeah.
And
speaking of acting, did you look up and see, I saw this somewhere, who was originally cast in the film? So some of the people that were on board when it was first supposed to happen, before COVID and filming had to be pushed back. So originally Sebastian Stan was in the cast. John Cena.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine John Cena in this movie?
Would he have been the original David Harbour, or
maybe? I honestly don't know.
Who else would he fill
Or was
out
he
for?
supposed?
Or Ray Liotta?
Brendan Fraser's character? Or,
I don't know.
Nick Cage, I guess, was supposedly in the cast.
Interesting.
And Josh Brolin, which I could maybe see Josh Brolin, maybe as Matthew, David Harbour's character. But like I said, those were kind of originally who was in the film, but with COVID happening, filming had to be pushed. So they pretty much got a whole new cast, it seems like.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Well, going on to a couple of the reviews I saw online for this film, as things start to come in, I saw on thefilmstage.com, they say, no sudden move. Steven Soderbergh's noir homage is both relaxed and invigorating. I think that's a good way to sum it. They're saying, quote, Soderbergh's latest heist picture, the 1950s period piece, No Sudden Move, concerns two Detroit criminals who follow the money until they physically can't follow it any farther.
Ooh, that's a nice one.
It's a good way to describe this.
Yeah.
Quote, despite his aesthetic leaps of faith and distribution practices, Soderbergh employs a soft touch relative to other auteurs of his generation. He generally chooses to place writing and performance front and center, allowing genre and story to command attention instead of any self-conscious moves behind the camera. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah,
I think
that is a good way. I think reviews for this movie, it's either they love it or they hate it. It seems when I'm looking. And I'm maybe one of those people that's a little in the middle.
a little in the middle.
Like, so I have a quote from a review that I saw that I feel like perfectly sums up kind of how I feel about it. So this is from Vincent Mancini. He said, it feels like Soderbergh wanted to make a movie about urban renewal and the car industry, but just couldn't commit, and instead made a fun, heisty thing in which characters just mention those things instead. Which is how I feel a little bit. Like, I think he tried to bring a lot of these bigger political aspects into the film, but it didn't work. It wasn't enough. So it more so just feels like a fun little heist.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I had a hard time even figuring out this had anything to do with cars until the very end when they mention that
when Matt
it's
Damon
about cars.
shows up, right?
Yeah.
Like, so maybe we should finish up with the plot at the end, right? So Matt Damon shows up. They give the document to him finally, and he gives them $375,000.
He gives them a ton of money.
Right.
He gives them, I believe, $406,000.
Well, so that's where I'm confused. It was $375,000, but then once Ron takes the money up to his girlfriend, it all of a sudden becomes $406,000. They must have had money from somewhere else.
There was like another envelope or something like that too.
Or maybe the money they got from the very original babysitting job gets added in.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, it ends up to be, like 406. But so they get the money from Matt Damon, and then the gangster shows up, one of the mob bosses, and takes Don Cheadle. And Ron is just left there alone with the money. So of course he takes all the money and runs. He goes to his girlfriend, they pack up, they're out of there with $406,000.
Yeah. And then Ronald gets shot in the car
twist.
because his girlfriend is thinking, you know what? Nope, I want $406,000 for myself.
Well, you gotta think, right? Frank was her husband, so she knows. She's like her own little mob boss.
Yeah, pretty much.
She's like, I can dump this guy and keep $406,000 for myself.
Yep.
So let's shoot him in a park and drive away with all the money.
Yep.
Now a free woman. She's pulled over by the cops. They don't even care that she just killed a man, right? They take the money and leave her.
Exactly. That's another twist in itself. I mean, it's her and Ronald in the car together who leave with the suitcase.
And you think it's a happy ending.
And she just shot off Ronald and then drives away. She gets pulled over and she's thinking, they're going to arrest me for killing Ronald and also probably stealing this money. And then the cop does not even try to arrest her. He tells her to get out of the car and then just takes the suitcase and
he
leaves.
knows who she is because he says, like, have a nice trip, Mrs.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Palsy or whatever.
Aldi, something like that. So they just want the money. Right.
Yeah.
So that plays into the whole, like, police corruption and the auto industry kind of controlling the city. The whole thing with power, right? They have the money. They have the power. So in the end, Ron's dead.
Yep.
And one happy thing happens. Don Cheadle's set free.
Yeah.
You think the mob boss is going to kill him, but he just takes him to a warehouse and says...
He gets out of the trunk and is like, why did you do that? And the guy's like, you thought you could actually trust me? And of course, I'm sure in Don Cheadle's mind, he's thinking, well, I guess not.
But he's like, here's $5,000.
Yeah, he's like, I just wanted $5,000.
Go to Kansas City.
Okay, here you go.
Yeah. Happy ending for Don Cheadle's character, I guess. And the auto industry, because they continued to thrive for another few decades. And then everything kind of fell downhill.
Absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. And how does John Hamm, the police detective, make out of this? He brings in the suitcases of money to Matt Damon and tells him, here's your money back. And it wasn't $375,000, but it was actually $406,000. And Matt Damon tells him, I must have miscounted, but thank you. And take a bottle of liquor for yourself.
Have an $88 bottle of liquor.
So, thank you.
And there we go.
That's just normal conversation for Matt Damon, I'm sure. Just, take a bottle of liquor for yourself.
Have some. Go ahead.
So I think that brings us to our final slurps up or slurps down on this movie.
I think we've talked all we can about it.
I think we have on this episode. It's just this movie certainly took me by surprise. With Steven Soderbergh, the magician of filmmaking. Is that what I'm gonna call him from now on?
I think so. I mean, sorry, one more little like tidbit to talk about. As we talked about, he's a magician and can do everything. Also, they filmed this whole movie in like 1 or 2 months. He had like 6 months to edit it, and then it premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival.
Yes.
Like, what a machine. How did you do all that so quickly?
It's like the Chris Angel of filmmaking. Yes. That's impressive.
But anyway, your final slurps.
Yes. Yeah, I gotta say, this movie as a whole, I think it's certainly worth the time of checking out. I think visually, this film certainly delivers, even though I said that the fisheye looking lens trick is not something that I very much favored. I think that visually, in terms of costume and acting and even cinematography, I think, yes, I would suggest this movie to definitely check it out. And especially with the script, I think it's definitely worth checking it out. It's very cool. It's a nice change of pace in terms of other films I've seen this year. And I think it's very fun to see something like this. I like seeing movies that make me think in a deep mental capacity in terms of like, what would I do if I was put in a situation like this? If I really had to think in terms of like a puzzling circumstance. And I think this movie definitely put me in that kind of radar. So I would certainly give it a slurps up. So 100%, I will give this movie a slurps up. What about you, Laura?
So I agree. I definitely think it's worth a watch. So I'll give it a slurps up. But in my own little rating, right, I'm going to say it gets 3 slurps out of 5. I feel like it was good. I'm glad I watched it. Like you're saying, the acting, the cast is amazing. Visually, you know, the costumes, just the vibe of Detroit. I think that's all great. I just really think it could have done more. And maybe that's not what he was wanting. Maybe he did just want it to be a fun heist. But I just feel like they could have done more with like the racial division or even the seedy power of the auto industry at the time. I felt like I would want more of that. But I'll take it as it is, a fun heist movie. Slurps up. Go watch it on HBO Max.
You heard it from her, ladies and gentlemen. You heard that slap in the face, Mr. Soderbergh. You need to make some better movies. No! Make some better judgment calls.
It's a good movie. Don't come after me. I love Traffic.
You're going to get hit by a car now with that statement.
Knock on wood. Dang.
Oh, I'm just kidding. Definitely check it out, listeners. It's worth the watch, I think. We both say it's worth the watch.
Yeah.
But anywho, it is the time for the solo plugs, putting the plugs on the outlets. And I got to say, you can find me online on Twitter, on Instagram. You can find me on SoundCloud at Adam Meisner. You can even find me on Twitch from time to time at A Meisner. That's my username. And I make music. I make all kinds of music, original music. I cover songs from time to time. And if you want to hear me play a certain song of your choosing, just let me know. And I might even toss it up online. Just let me know. Laura, is there anything that you want to plug?
Sure. I mean, I'm a little bit out there. So if you want to follow me on TikTok, I do create a lot of book talk. Not a lot. I've started some book talk content. You can follow me there at Artielu, ARTIELU. You know, little nerdy me, that's my cat's names. So you can follow me there. On Instagram, you can also follow me there at L Herlocher, LHERLOCHER. I think otherwise, you know, make sure also you're following Screen Slurps. So you can find Screen Slurps on Facebook, on Instagram, and on TikTok. I think there's plans to be posting some more content, so we'll be a little more active on there.
That's right. We will be posting more content. And thank you so much for listening to this episode. This was our first live episode, not virtual. That's right, live in person. Me and Laura are looking each other right now in person, eye to eye. And we can't wait to do more episodes just like this. And it's all thanks to you listening to our show. And we do it with your support. So please check us out more. Give us those 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. It really helps us so much with your support. And if there's anything you want to hear from us, please let us know. Give us some suggestions.
Yeah,
Tell us what you want to hear. Tell us what you want, what you really, really want, and we will make it happen. So, closing out, this is Adam Meisner.
Maura Herlaffen.
And we will catch you later.